Good evening, Bills Mafia. What's going on? Welcome to Buffalo Late Night. Not so happy Monday. I apologize. I am your host, Thomas DeLoss, and I'm incredibly honored, as is my little brother, who is the producer on the show, Ian Leary. We are honored now, Buffalo Late Night, to be a part of the Buffalo Rumblings family. It's been a great journey the past 5 months, very small journey, and it's exciting where this thing is going. So we're glad to be here, and so thank you for tuning in this evening. And if you are listening on Spotify, happy Monday, or if you're listening on Spotify, happy Tuesday. I'm gonna mute you, Kevin, real quick. Your fingers are typing happily. You can find all of our free content on social media and streaming platforms, including Spotify and YouTube. And if you're watching on Twitter right now, hop on over to YouTube, hit that subscribe button, join the conversation. We'd love to have you. Tonight, joining us is the voice of the Overreaction post-game show, as well as the Hump Day Hotline, as well as the Off Tackle with John Fina. The guy's everywhere. Mr. Joe Miller.
What's happening?
And the guy who has him beaten out for the most appearances on this show on Buffalo Late Night, the co-host of the Going Deep podcast of Cover One, Mr. Kevin Massare. Gentlemen, welcome back again.
Pleasure to be here.
Good to have you. Well, congratulations. Yeah, it's good to be here. And congratulations to you on your big step up network-wise. So that's always a fun day. I remember when Mathis called me, or I should say DM'd me and asked me if I wanted to join Fanatics. And I was like, what? You know who I am? So, yeah. So congratulations. Well deserved.
Yeah, man.
Congrats, man.
We're super excited. And it's ironic that the two people, because we were supposed to have Tim Graham and Jenna Cottrell, as Joe alluded to prior in his show. And unfortunately, both of them are, as many people, coming down with some illnesses right now. So we kind of had to pivot. And what better than to have the two people who are on the very first show for Buffalo Late Night, now on the very first show on Buffalo Rumblings, Buffalo Late Night. So that being said,
Kevin and I are better looking than them anyway.
Better. I don't know about that, but we definitely have better takes.
Wow.
Going for it. Now, ladies and gentlemen, for anybody who hasn't watched at Buffalo Late Night, we do have an injury specialist here. That is Mr. Banged Up Bills himself, Dr. Kyle Trimble. Kyle, good evening, my friend.
Good to talk to everyone here.
Good to see you, bro.
Absolutely.
Good to have Kyle on again.
So for everybody who isn't familiar, which I'm assuming is a lot of people that are watching Buffalo Rumblings right now, Kyle comes in every single week for the first 5 to 15 minutes, depending, and gives us an injury update as to how the Bills are doing or not doing so well, which has been the more lately. So Kyle, based on what just happened in the last game, how are you looking, my friend?
Lots of little injuries, but nothing overly too major. One of the biggest ones is Tremaine Edmonds. He left after halftime out due to a groin injury. Now, keep in mind, he came into the game with a groin injury, and he was questionable. I was surprised that he played, but then when he went out with a groin injury, I was like, well, I see the benefit of him playing. And then when he wasn't in there in the second half, you saw what the loss was when he wasn't in there because the defense just wasn't playing as well. So I get why he played, but it's not surprising that he did exit because of the groin injury. I thought he suffered the injury late in the second half, trying to bat down a pass. And there really wasn't anything after that. They just announced that he was questionable, and then he did not return after that. The other injury to note was Jake Kumro. He left with a left ankle sprain, or at least we assume with that. He was probable to return, then was downgraded out. The video wasn't clear on what happened. He either got kicked in the leg or got rolled up on. And keep in mind, this is the same ankle that he injured back in week 3 against the Dolphins, which he missed 3 games for and 4 weeks overall. So those are the big ones that I had some concerns about. But then other ones, we saw Josh Allen have a little scare along with Deion Dawkins on the same play on the interception. Cam Lewis, Devin Singletary, Isaiah McKenzie, DeMar Hamlin, Gabe Davis, all those guys got a little dinged up, but they all came right back in and continued playing.
So what you're telling me is the only other boundary receiver that the Bills have is now injured.
I'll give you this here. His back, he got hit in the back trying to go over the middle, and it was slow to get up. But I did see in the Buffalo News that he's been dealing with a thumb injury. Don't know which side it was.
Talking about Kumaro?
No.
I'm talking about
Davis.
Yeah, I'm talking about Kumaro. The only reserve.
I got to figure out what. I got to know who the boundary receivers then, I guess, are.
There's only 3. There's only 3 on this.
Yeah. So Kumaro, he's week to week there. And he's gonna be out for some time, probably at least next 2 games, and then we'll kind of see what happens with that. But the week to week designation usually fits the mold with that there. But I guess I'll go back to Gabe Davis because I was talking about him not thinking what a boundary receiver was there. So, no, you educated me there, Joe. I appreciate it. But Davis, he actually was dealing with a thumb injury. He revealed to the Buffalo News in the article that came out yesterday. He said he injured it pretty bad while he's trying to rehab from his ankle injury prior to week 2. So don't know how severe, what the issues are with that, but it's been at least 2 months almost since he's had the injury. But we did see him have some issues prior to that when he finally did return.
Gotcha.
Now, any idea? Obviously, Coach McDermott's been kind of, I feel like, being very coy. Any idea what's going on with Tre'Davious White at this point?
Not officially. I did note in the press conference today that they were asking about the physical versus mental aspect. So I've seen some rumblings about that here and there, that some people are thinking about that. at this point, like we know that the physical component, like he's hit the benchmarks from what he's seen because he's passed his physical. So we know that much. And we've seen guys get passed for physical though that aren't quite ready. We saw that with J.K. Dobbins. We've seen it with other guys who are kind of just getting around the field. But if you pass a physical, you're at least at some baseline level to perform. That's how I would interpret that. So then you do have to pivot. Is this mental? And I can't speak to how he's feeling, but everybody handles injuries differently. I deal with this not so much from an athlete's perspective, work as a physical therapist, but I have plenty of people who have fallen over the years, gotten a bad car accident, just had some type of traumatic event happen to them. And sometimes they don't know how to respond once they get back to that normal, or do they ever think they're going to get back to normal? And I tell them sometimes you have to find that new normal. And I don't know if that's the case here with Tre'Davious White, if it is a mental thing, but everybody works through that process on their own. So whenever he gets out there, I know that he's going to be confident, but if you're having to think about what you're doing, you're usually not going to perform as well. And I dealt with that with injuries to myself there. I going back in high school, I tore my ACL, I blew up my knee, dislocated my shoulder. And there was that hesitancy going out, is this going to happen again? Am I going to be able to perform as well as I did? And sometimes you have to kind of just work your way through that and just do this stuff and eventually get comfortable with it again. And other times people really, I don't want to say they don't get over it, but everybody processes it differently. So if it is a mental thing, give the guy the space he needs. This is his first major injury. They did say that, but they keep saying he hasn't had a setback either though. So unless they're lying to us, which they could, that's their prerogative to do what they want to, but either he has setback somewhere or it's a mental thing and he's just having to take time to work through it there. It's frustrating looking outside in, but that's a big thing for somebody who is as talented as he is.
Yeah, it's safe if you look through the injury notes and slash their roster moves. I still don't know if their goal is to eat up a roster space right now with the amount of injuries they have. If he wasn't ready to go, their plan was to have him. I truly believe their plan was to have him around the Jets game. I truly think that. I think the time frame matches up. I think it's physically cleared. Obviously, maybe there's some mental going on there, and maybe they were hoping to have him this week. I think this week was a shock, though. I think Jets, you could go either way, maybe. I do envision at home on their playing surface with their schedules, doctors are everything going on in their favor, rest in your home. I think that there's no way you're going to convince me that this was part of the plan. Now, is it only a week or two setback? Hopefully. I think that it's safe to say that they felt comfortable, like, okay, let's not have him play at MetLife, even though ideally they probably would have had him ready for that game. So I think it's uncomfortable saying them not having him against the Vikings was a shock to me, thus them activating a corner off the practice squad. I think with the Elam injury, that was to me everything they needed to know. Like, hey Trey, we really need you. You physically cleared. How you feeling? You ready to go? I do think that was part of the plan. So you saw it with, who was a better example of this was Ronnie Stanley of Ravens fans just getting down his throat of like, is he ever going to play again? We gave him this big contract. He's never he's fully healthy. He didn't want to play against the Bills. The Bills ended up winning that game, obviously. And their fans were just livid. And not the fans are livid at Trey, but they're getting close to the point where it's like, unless a team's going to be honest and say he had a physical setback, they're going to need to say something soon, in my opinion, because part of the sport and part of why we watch this sport is the entertainment factor. It just is what it is. They listen to the team. They listen to the fans more than we think, though. And I think that at some point they're going to start feeling some pressure through reporters or maybe other means of Trey White. So do you think it's time for him to go? Like at some point they need to give him 20 to 30 plays and hopefully it's in a less stressful situation against the Browns. Hopefully Donovan Peoples-Jones, Mari Cooper's good, but what's kind of your opinion of that?
At some point, yeah, you do have to rip off the Band-Aid. I mean, you're going up against stuff on Diggs, Gabe Davis. You're going to go up against some elite players in practice. And I would think that it's got to make you say, hey, if I can go beat these guys in practice, I should be able to perform on the field. But I don't know, the environment's different. You're out there in front of 70,000 people. You're back where, not necessarily where you had the original injury, that was down in New Orleans, but you're back in the same environment, if you will. And I don't know, everybody processes things differently. I've had people I've worked with that you show them how well they're doing with everything, and sometimes they're still fearful. And nothing you're going to say is going to convince them of that until they convince themselves of it. So that's the frustrating thing. I mean, we can be totally off base here, but I mean, the questioning leads to some further questions from us. Hey, is there something going on that we don't know about yet? And that might be the case.
And the one thing that I want to go to is that there was a press conference, and Tre'Davious White even said he did a lot of like internal soul searching, that he needed to be more than just football. So it almost makes you think that he spent a lot of time kind of doing that like an internal voice thing, where he's kind of worrying about himself and what's going on, and if there's more than this. And I think there's probably, especially for a guy like him, I mean, one of the first things that he said was he takes his job seriously because he was McDermott's first ever pick. So everything he does, he's very, very cognizant of his decisions and what he does and why he does them. So I wouldn't be surprised if coming from a guy who has torn my ACL in both of my knees and come back from surgery and a mailman, it's very stressful, I'll say, having to go back to normalcy and just day-to-day routines and life and little things. I'm sure for him, and I'm not Tre'Davious White, so I'm not comparing myself, but I am sure there is a bit of him having to talk himself back into it. The one thing I am interested in, Richard Rush brought this up, with Trey being off the IR and technically a healthy scratch, does that cost him money? I think the only thing it might cost him is if he has bonuses due to performance. Yeah, so if he has different benchmarks in his contract for that, but that would be it. Other than that, no, it's prorated based on games.
Yeah, the other one is Jordan Poyer. Like, why is Jordan Poyer still on the active roster? We all saw the video from who was it last week?
John Scott.
Yeah, John Scott, where he's got the knob on the end of his elbow. Like, he's not even close to coming back. Like, why has he not been put on IR? And why is Dean Marlowe not playing football? What is going on?
Couple answers there. I can help with some of that. So the injuries, all of his bonuses are guaranteed on injury. That's part of what people are scared with the 5th year. Trey, we'll start with Trey.
Yeah.
With the 5th year option, people are scared of the 5th year option. Let's just say with Edmonds or anybody else, they're guaranteed. So all of his bonuses are guaranteed, all of them fully guaranteed. I see his roster bonus was guaranteed. Most of his injury bonuses, active game day bonuses were guaranteed. 2022 option bonus, they're all guaranteed. There might be little things in there that aren't, but I'm going to find it hard to believe that the Bills are going to go nickel dime him $250,000 a workout bonus. They might, but I don't see that happening with one of their premier players. Now that does put some precedent on, just like if you're the highest paid employee at your work, whatever it is that you do, you're salesman, what doesn't really matter. It does come with some pressure. You're eating up you've already restructured. You're eating up close to $16 million in a cap hit. And obviously real cash is involved there, $10 million of real cash. At some point, there's pressure on you. You're eating into the cap that the Bills could have spent somewhere else. You need to play. So they need to get him through the mental hurdles. And by all accounts, we don't know, but by all accounts, it is leaning toward that being more likely the situation before we know anything physical. But at least on the bonus end, that's all guaranteed. So that leads back to the Stanley point I made earlier. How much motivation does he have to go press it this minute with getting over those mental hurdles? I wouldn't say a great deal, knowing that pretty much everything's guaranteed. He's pretty much probably actually already pocketed the majority of his pay. So there's not a lot to gain financially. So why not come back right? I get his mindset as an employee of anything. But at the same time, I'm not paid to play in front of 70,000 people. I'm not paid to be one of the best rehabbing athletes in the world. So there is going to be that give and take both ways across the board. And then as you transition to Poyer, I've been told, and I have it on pretty good authority, that there's some back and forth on if he wants to play with a club or not. Based on what I've heard, they feel like they want him to play through a lot of this. The Bills originally didn't put him on IR because they want him to play through this. So that's kind of the disconnect. And what's Poyer saying? Well, why am I pushing myself? I've given so much. His brother has hinted at this on Twitter. I've given so much to this team. I just wanted a contract or some form of pay bump or some type of extension. Didn't ask for 20 years, maybe 2 or 3 additional years. It didn't come. You spent your assets other places. And based on what I know, went elsewhere with some of the extensions. So at some point, Poyer put his foot down and was like, Trey's not playing until he's fully healthy. I want to get my elbow right. I need to go get paid in a few months. I can't come back and play poorly, even though that's not the expectation. So at some point that'll come to a resolution, but that's what I know from that situation. And from what I've heard on Dean Marlowe, he's not ready per the playbook. So the Bills felt more comfortable going with Cam Lewis, a guy that they felt better in coverage. We had just watched, what's funny is the Bills had just traded for Marlowe after getting Hail Married on. So there's definitely not, it's not like you're getting Minka Fitzpatrick.
No,
it's a guy that knows the system, that they felt comfortable with ramping up quickly, which is the ironic part of this scenario, but he's not ready yet based on what I know. So I think he's playing this week based on some of the things that have been said. So I wouldn't be shocked to see Dean Marlowe this week, and or how they feel about Cam Lewis's performance, which played really well at times, struggled and run a little bit, and then struggled to, as he said himself, to knock a ball down. So the Bills could go with that multiple ways, but it is the expectation that Dean Marlowe would be ready for the Browns game.
Okay. Kyle, you got anything else for us, my friend?
At the past week with all the Josh Allen hoopla that he didn't play in. I mean, it's incredible the week we just had, and then he went out and did what he needed to do, and it down from my vantage point. I thought he'd miss a few games, and that was a lot of the reports that they were talking about, that it was tear in there, and they weren't sure if he was going to play, and that some of the other stuff from Will Carroll, who's I expected injury analysis, does more baseball stuff, but he's been in the field for a long time, so I believed what he was saying, and just all the stuff from Rappaport, Mortensen, all those guys. It was definitely a calculated risk to have him play, though, because they did say in today's press conference that he was still day-to-day. We know that the injury is there, but you look at, we lose 33-30, and do we even get close with Case Keenum? I probably not. So Josh Allen at 80% is probably still your best shot at winning that game versus 100%, Case Keenum. And I went back and looked at the film. They kept him in shotgun, which I know he's more comfortable in there, but I think outside of the two plays and behind center or under center, he was in shotgun, which gave him more time to look at the field, see what's going on, and that gave him better protection. I mean, outside of the 2 sacks, and then I think he had 6 design runs, or he went and ran for 6 runs. He really wasn't touched a whole lot, so it wasn't getting hit around the pocket. So that limited his exposure. I'm sure that was by design by Ken Dorsey, which was great on them. So it was definitely calculated risks that worked out. You hope that they continue doing that until he's healthier, at a standpoint where they can unleash the deep ball and do some other things that he probably couldn't have done because of the elbow, despite him being able to play in the first place.
Kyle, so on Josh, it's funny because you said that they probably would even have scored 30 points if Case Keenum had played. Meanwhile, I've been hearing for the last 24 hours that they lost because of Josh Allen. So meanwhile, the defense gave up 33 points, but that's apparently Josh Allen's fault too. So did you happen to look close enough? I was trying to see, and it seemed like underneath his white sleeve, there was some sort of a brace at the top of his arm. Did you notice that?
Yeah, he had your hinge brace. Think of JJ Watt with his hinge brace, Jordan Poyer with his hinge brace. It's just the same thing with that there. It may have been designed a little bit differently for a throwing athlete or whatever, but it's still generally the same thing.
Gotcha. Is that very similar to what I wear? So I played baseball growing up, right? And I've got, tendonitis is on one side of the elbow, and I can't remember what it's called on the bottom side, but there's a brace that I'll wear here that it keeps that tendon from flipping over. Is it similar thing just at the top of the bicep? Dear God, how do you throw the foot? That's a whole other conversation, but yeah.
Well, I mean,
this would be the brace right here.
That's a knee brace.
Yeah, but a lot of guys with bigger arms, like linemen, they wear knee braces on their arms just because they're so big.
Yeah.
What were you going to say?
So, I mean, the arms different. By the time you're going to throw a pass, your arm is already more extended, so you don't need that bend in the elbow. And of course, the hinge in the elbow brace does allow you to come forward like that. It just would be impractical to have a brace on when you're trying to throw more of a baseball style pitch versus more of that over the 3/4 when you're coming over like this.
Right.
So, I mean, we saw him do it before in the 2018 season when he had the injury.
Well, that was on his left arm. That brace was on his left arm. I remember that specifically because when he fell on his left arm when he threw the ball out.
No. His 2018 injury when he hurt the same elbow.
My bad.
Yeah, no, you're right. He did hurt the left arm. That did affect his ability to throw because he was throwing high for a little while and his accuracy was off.
Yeah.
But his 2018 injury that he had wore the same brace and he was coming back just fine there. But
I have a tweet out right now that you guys have probably seen that's getting blown up, and I'm being called an idiot by a lot of people. Just about the last throw, the interception that he threw. Gabe Davis is actually open on that play. He hitches, right, which is part of the problem that he's late on the throw. But clearly, he threw that ball behind Gabe Davis, short and behind him, and that's a throw we've seen we've seen him throw to Gabe in the past. And if there's confirmation that he has a brace on his right arm, as much as he said in his press conference, I was not limited by my injury. I wasn't limited by anything. I'm totally fine. I question that. So that's just me.
That's why I thought too, the risk, I mean, the calculated risk for him playing. And,
Yeah.
you know, I trust the medical stuff. I don't believe I've ever publicly questioned him. I think the only time I have was when Mitch Morse sat after his concussion. He was fully clear, but that was a weird situation after all with that. But anyway,
man was active that game too.
Yeah, he was. I think that's the only time I've publicly questioned them. But I've learned that, hey, you guys have these guys healthy, ready each and every week. They haven't played through some crazy things that they get him up and ready for. So if they felt that he could play and wasn't going to re-injure himself, I'm all for that. It does suck being wrong, but I also know that I put a hell lot of research and thought process into that. You know why I came to my conclusion. So if I'm right, great. If I'm wrong, hey, you learn. And, you know, we also know Josh Allen is not human. So that's
he's a cyborg.
I think, how many other guys do you think would not play because of that? I mean,
every other quarterback, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe
30.
Yeah.
Herbert's playing. Maybe Mahomes.
I got Mahomes.
But it's a rare thing, and it went against pretty much everything historically they've done with injuries. But when you got QB1, you can bend the rules a little bit.
And they almost stole one, Kyle. Like if you look at it across the board, we were all arguing. I mean, it was a miserable game. I tweeted out and got a lot of run of it being the worst regular season loss. Some people pointed to some drought games, and like yes, the Monday night game against the Cowboys was brutal. A couple Leotis McKelvin fumble was in there.
Patriots.
Those are bad football teams, though.
For sure.
It really didn't matter. Like at the end of the day, I think the Bills are like 1-5 against that Cowboys team, and like it would have been fun to take a win, but like you'd argue that it doesn't really matter for your progression of your team and what your end goal is. And it was fun. It was a good game for the fans.
Yeah.
I mean, that was an onside kick recovery and a field goal. Like it wasn't that nutty. It was not fun. But that game needed about 10 plays to go wrong. The Bills, as Joe said earlier, can't blame Josh Allen. Yes, there was a fumble recovery touchdown. The defense put him on the half-yard line, though. Like at some point, yes, you need to have a better quarterback exchange there. But they then had 12 men on the field, and still they were able to stop them in that situation. But the Bills could have not even given a chance to Josh Allen to throw that interception and then blame Josh Allen. They had 12 men on the field. I don't know how that's missed. These officials were egregious. You can't call the play earlier in the game for against Justin Jefferson for pass interference and then not call the same exact thing on Knox. The 12 men on the field, it was just an egregious mess across. They struggled. They had a really bad game. Some of them didn't go against the Bills. But my thing is, if you're going to call, and this is baseball too, or anything, if you're going to call a high strike, you need to call a pass interference both ways on literally the same exact thing. And then you're inconsistent there. But Josh Allen wouldn't have even had a chance to throw that interception because it would have been first and goal from the one.
Or fumble. If Cam Lewis knocks that ball down, he doesn't fumble or throw an interception.
Yeah. Yep. There's a plethora of those situations that you could have gone to. The Bills lost Tremaine Edmonds in this game, and it's clear, Kyle, why they wanted him to play. The team's defense was exceptionally better in the first half, and everyone's pointing to like Josh Allen choking. But it's a matter of, I don't know, the Vikings. I think Tremaine Edmonds, Terrell Dodson got lost on that Dalvin Cook, right? Absolutely befuddled and lost on that play. They ran to Benford, and Benford was literally on his own on an island with a couple linemen. I don't know a ton of cornerbacks making that play, but Tremaine Edmonds could have fought through the mess and at least affected that play. So it's tough to blame a cyborg and Allen for anything that went on. Probably still shouldn't have thrown that pass. I still think he was baited a little bit. And then he went back and backtracked on his post game and said, I expected Davis to actually cut back inside in front of Peterson. And you've seen that disconnect between those two a little bit on these interceptions. You saw it against the Jets on that disconnect. So there is something there that Gabe's reading things a little bit differently than Josh would have liked him to. Because I think it could have been a touch on both ways. Cuts back in front of Peterson. I think he catches it. Or like Joe said, if he goes to the post and the ball is lofted more toward the uprights, I think it has a chance too. So I would have liked to see they just weren't on the same page, and it wasn't a good play design. You had 3 players within 10 yards of each other. You had a flat in McKenzie that was absolutely covered. You also had Singletary come off his block late, and Josh is through his progression, and he's halfway through his motion by the time he didn't know if Singletary would come off that block. Though the counter argument that some people I work with is like he had time and he did not need to double pump. Yeah. He could have sat there and scrambled and done a scramble drill with Singletary to either throw it to him or run. Probably was the play. But like Joe said, I do think there was an opportunity with Davis.
The big one.
I don't think any of this was Allen. In my opinion. I'm sorry.
The bait on the play to me was the Knox play. I think they want him to throw it to Knox. He throws that ball to Knox over the middle. It's intercepted. Like legitimately, that ball gets taken away. So Kevin and I are on the same page all the way through it, including. And I know we're kind of off topic because we're talking about injuries. Even through the defense, make a stop. Make a freaking stop somewhere, and don't make a stop on the 6-inch line. That's not where you make the stop. Like make the stop down the field. Stop them in overtime so they don't kick a field goal. Right? Stop them somewhere. But yeah, I mean, Josh's mistakes hurt us.
They got to stop with 12 men on the field. I mean, seriously.
Maybe. I mean, that's somewhat. We could probably debate that too, right? I mean, it was close. I mean, it was really, really close. Thank God for the replay. But yeah,
I gotta let Kyle out of here. Kyle's gotta run real quick. But
Kyle, does Tremaine Edmonds play? I just had to ask.
We have to see what he does on Wednesday practice. That's what I'm going with right now.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Smart.
All right.
Well, for anybody who is unfamiliar with Kyle's work, go to BangedUpBills.com or BangedUpBills on Twitter. He's fantastic. You'll find him all over the place, including my show, including Buffalo Rumblings. Does really, really good stuff. Find him in the first 15 minutes of every episode and get some good information about everything going on. So, Kyle, as per usual, we'll see you next week, and thank you again.
Yep. Have a good night, guys.
See you, Kyle.
Right, bye.
So, carrying on with, obviously a doctor, one of the biggest things I concern myself with, as Joe does, as Kevin does, as being parents, I'm going to be a father soon enough, is which dentist you want to send your kid to. Because, obviously a dentist is the most important thing. Want those pearly whites to be pearly white forever. And a dentist for kids offers individual dental treatment for kids of all ages. By providing a fun, relaxed, encouraging environment, Dr. Zach's goal is to help your child build confidence in their smile and with their overall dental health. A dentist for kids in Rochester is currently accepting new patients, and they participate with most major insurances. If you visit Dr. Zach, mention Buffalo Late Night for $25 off your choice of a custom whitening kit or an electric toothbrush. Call today to set up an appointment with Dr. Zach and his team, 585-538-7230. Now, carrying on with what we were just talking about, I agree. The multitude of decisions that could have been changed based on that ending, they could have won it a handful of times. Sure. It wasn't just, Josh trying to, lean forward and fumbling, or Cam Lewis. I mean, that first half, they could have put their foot on, their throat and just ran away with the game. It's an unfortunate situation. The one thing I am concerned with is, do we need to start seriously concerning ourselves with the Miami Dolphins? Should we be taking them in the same vein as the Kansas City Chiefs?
Kevin?
I'm down on the Dolphins. I'm not going to be the best Dolphins guy. My co-host Mike Bunn is big on the Dolphins. He's high on them and he's high on Tua. So we have a good give and take there. I think that they've played as soft of a schedule as possible. I think that some of those warts will come out very soon. The DVOA numbers will prove it. I think that they're a trendy team that has potential to upset somebody like the Ravens. But I don't have ultimate inconsistencies that they're going to be a complete threat. They're a nice story. Do you have hopes that the Giants, who have only scored over 24 points once, are going to threaten? It's similar and a little different of a guys. The Dolphins have the toys. They don't have that's kind of reverse. They have zero defense. They're getting hung up on 30 points. They have some of the worst defensive metrics, even though they have a bunch of playmakers on that team. I think eventually that's going to come and nip them. Games are going to get colder. You're not going to be able to find Tyreek Hill in some of these situations. Tua, will he stay healthy in one season, let alone game to game? We'll have to see. But to me, I am not a believer of them being a true contender, even though Dolphins fans have been in my mentions for some reason the last 24 hours. I don't know why. They love the third in the AFC line. Even though you don't decide tiebreakers in week 10. You don't need tiebreakers till week 18 if there's a tie. So you breaking a tie in a not completed tiebreaker scenario is absolutely useless. The Bills are tied for second in the division right now, and owing a half game with the game in hand. If they beat the Browns, then you could have a 3-way tie potentially in the top of the AFC East. Or if the Patriots come through, then you have 4 teams of 1 game apart, which could be very, very interesting either way off of that game. But I don't think the Jets are going to get it done against the Patriots. I think you're going to have a really interesting scenario where you have 7-3 and 6-4, and it's going to come down to the wire. But no, I don't believe when the Dolphins are going to continue to play some of these division games to end the season. They have a San Francisco coming up. They've kind of the Chargers. I don't think they're going to get through all of these, but I do think they're going to be an interesting wild card team that I'm not sure I'd love to be matched up with the week 1 of the postseason. I don't have them as a true contender. Definitely don't see him getting them done against the Chiefs of the world. And hopefully the Bills can prove the scenario right to when they play December 18th.
The big question mark for me, everything that Kevin just said, yes, is Tua. So, I mean, and by question mark, I mean, can he sustain what he's been doing? So he's the last 3 or 4 weeks in a row, he's been over 130 passer rating. Like, he's playing good football. It's hard. And Dave put in the comments that he feels like Tua's made that leap. I've not watched enough of Tua to know if he's made the leap or not. But, when you look at numbers and you look at statistics, and I know statistics don't tell the whole story. They only tell the story that you want to tell. There's something to be said for the football he's playing right now, which he's playing at a high enough level to keep his team from losing again against soft teams that are, effectively and the good ones that he's playing are beating themselves, like the Bills did, like the Ravens did. So it'll be interesting to see. It's funny to me. They're scheming him to win. They're scheming him well. Mike McDaniel's doing a very good job, but the genius that is Mike McDaniel when it comes to the run game, their run game is awful. Like, their run game is not that great at all. So it'll be interesting to just kind of see where the whole thing pans out in the end. But Kevin, I agree with everything you said.
I mean, Joe, you got Pittsburgh, Detroit, Chicago, Cleveland in this run.
Yep.
Fine. I mean, the Bills need to do it too, or any quarterback would need to do that, win that stretch. The Bills actually have, and similar, we'll see if they're able to complete the Cleveland win too. But other than that, I mean, he's playing solid. Like, you can't give him an MVP off of that. I mean, there is some nuance. You can't play football in a vacuum. You have to go with their schedule, and it's horrible. It's not his fault that they're playing these teams. Like, he's doing what he needs to do in this scenario.
Yeah.
But
the only
that's about as low as it can get in 4 games.
Yeah, the only disagreement I would have is if they are a wild card team, I will take them at home in Buffalo all day long. Like, give me the Dolphins in the winter in Buffalo, like this weekend, 24 degrees, wind blowing. If the wind's blowing, it's 24 degrees. Tua ain't throwing anywhere. Like,
they're still like in the 20s in a lot of DVOA categories.
Yeah,
it's gonna collapse on them.
Yeah, it's gonna. I think so. Speaking of collapsing on them, I don't know if you guys are paying attention. The Eagles are getting beaten by the Redskins, who are about to score again, and Terry McLaurin is just losing his mind in this game. He's having a great game, but
that's a scary. I wouldn't want to play them if I was an NFC team looking for a win. I don't know that I'd love to have to see them on my schedule as a 500 team. That wouldn't be one I'd be happy with having to
for 128 right now.
I said he's losing his mind. He's having a
nice
good
little game.
Yeah. So anyway, sorry. Sidebar.
No, it's a good point because who do you want to win that game?
The Redskins, in my opinion, but that's just me because I don't want to see the Eagles go undefeated. I don't want to hear about the Eagles being the greatest team in football history. Like, I don't need to.
Yeah, but maybe you would want to have them go undefeated so we could finally shut the Dolphins fans up from 72.
Well, they got to go all the way. They got to go 20 games. Otherwise, the Dolphins fans ain't going to shut up. But yeah,
that's true.
Yeah. So let's not have that. Let's have them face the Bills in the Super Bowl and lose.
Yes, absolutely. Now in tonight's weekly segment, Ian, you want to throw that up? Tonight's Damn Award recipient is current backup quarterback for the Los Angeles Chargers, Chase Daniel. A man not known for touching the football often on the field, Chase Daniel has completed 178 passes over his 13-year career. What's astonishing is that Chase has earned $43 million since he first came into the NFL at a rate of nearly $250,000 per completion. He is the NFL's highest earner if rated by that metric. Even more astonishing, depending on if you want to think about that inflation rate in the last several decades, he's earned $18 million more than Joe Montana did his entire career. For reminding us that America's economic system is truly mind-boggling, Chase Daniel is this week's Damn Award recipient.
Damn.
Congrats, Dan. Yeah?
Good for him.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. Can I sign up for that job?
Right. Now, fellas, yesterday was a difficult loss. Obviously, we've talked about this, and one that I'm sure Coach McDermott wants back. Do we need to start worrying about the cataclysmic demise of Josh Allen's red zone prowess?
No, I think there's the funny thing about the red zone prowess for me with Josh Allen is they're doing things completely different now than they've done in years past. And a big piece of that is the threat of Josh Allen's legs have been removed. So the Bills aren't quite as, ready to just let Josh run. So inside of 6 yards, inside of 8 yards, whereas before defenses had to worry about that. And this year they haven't. And the reality is that changes the way defenses play you, and it changes your probability to score. Now, Josh throwing some red zone interceptions. He's forcing the ball. He seems a little bit befuddled at times or confused. Confused is probably too strong of a word. I was just talking with John Fina about this, and I was talking with somebody else about it earlier. It just seems like whatever changes to the default system that is being instituted by Dorsey and however he's trying to flow, and I'll back it up with an interview comment. It just seems like the team's still offensively having a little bit of a hard time settling in. And I would back that up with Stephon Diggs when he was asked about in his presser post game about play calling, and he's like, look, the play calls come in and it's our job to find a way to execute them. It wasn't we have to be better. It wasn't like, the play calls are right and we just made mistakes. We have to find a way to execute that play call, which to me isn't a glowing reception of we love it. It's great. It seems like to me there's an aspect of we're still trying to figure this out, right? And we know year to year offenses go through this. Well, you're using somebody else's offensive scheme with a new play caller who's trying to toss in his own stuff, which we've seen a lot of. This offense is very different than it was last year. Josh is throwing to the flat a lot. He's throwing to the backs a lot. Cole Beasley role is missing, gone. Dawson Knox is on the side of a milk carton largely. So I don't think there's anything to be worried about yet. I believe firmly that they're going to be able to find it, put it together, and some of it might return in seeing Josh be a little more apt to, inside of 8 yards, 6 yards, take off, which will change. It'll put defenses on their heels. It just changes the way teams play you.
Right, which I don't even know why they didn't do yesterday, to be honest with you. That was my full intention. Right, but even then, he lowered his shoulder multiple times yesterday's game. Yeah. When the rubber meets the road, when the game's on the line.
It's clear they told him, even though they told him not to run. It's clear. It's pretty clear. They wouldn't even go under center. It's pretty clear they wanted to limit the limited. They don't play him if there's already more than limited chance of injury, in my opinion.
Right.
Mm-hmm. There's definitely some conflicting stuff out there on how bad his injury was. Someone tried to say that they were the X-ray technician that did his X-ray and said to us that there was a very, very, very minor sprain and was never in doubt. Now that looks like it was right today. Couldn't run that last week for many reasons of A, is there HIPAA involved there, and B, what's going on in terms of, is that true? But I do think that there might be some precedent there, and you don't even come close to risking a potential re-injury to your $250 million quarterback. I don't think that there was much of a risk. And I've been told, yes, it's different than baseball, but it is a regenerative condition. Even getting hit the way he did only has a certain risk exposure. And I think that's why the Bills felt pretty good about rolling him out there. Now, with all that being said, I don't think he was running. I don't think that was ever in the game plan. I think they wanted to make sure under any conditions that he wasn't hurt or even sore. They wanted to get through the nerve part of the gripping the football, not necessarily a UCL Tommy John surgery. I think it was the nerve that they were a little bit more worried about him gripping the football and thus having to go in game to Case Keenum. That was not something they were looking forward to. They were just trying to steal this game, guys. Let's be honest. They was looking really good. They looked like geniuses. It looked like everything was going to work out. They were trying to steal this game. If they rolled out Case, they probably felt pretty good about that being close to an L against a good team. So they almost got through with their initiative to steal the game. You have the Eagles, right? As Joe said, Eagles right now struggling in their division game against a team called similar to how the Jets are, a team that could win games with a backup quarterback in there right now. So it's interesting that no one's perfect. It's tough to say. It just sucks how good the division is, just like it is for the Eagles. But it's tough to say how good the division is when other teams can go by 500 and still be games up on their division. So it's just a little frustrating that the Bills got 1 year of relief, and that still had to deal with New England. Really, the year prior was the year that they had some relief in 2020. So they had a year of relief, and still needed to play to the end of the year last year, the last game of the year against the Jets to clinch the division. So it's tough. I mean, it's certainly tough, but I do think that there's some scary though. If you dive into the red zone, it's not creative. They're not running particularly well based on some of the metrics in the red zone. And what's even worse than that is, they're running a lot of 2x2s, 2 receivers on each side of the field out of 14 personnel, stuff that's not working. They don't have a guy that's able to get open like Beasley. And they're not really using Josh's legs in the red zone too much. A lot of Josh's runs are 40-yard runs. They're not using his legs in the red zone very much. So there's definitely some challenge there for him.
They didn't even use Devin Singletary in the fourth quarter, which in a game where you're trying to control everything, that's the guy you go to.
Yeah.
I mean, at the very minimum, you go to him, whether it's Hines or you go to, Duke Johnson or James Cook. I mean, nobody.
They're also doing very uncharacteristic things, and Fina was losing his mind about that on the show just previously about the fact that they were running draw plays. 3rd and 2, they're running draw plays. We're not a draw team. And he talked about, he's like, you go into a week and you rep that once at half speed. Why are you running that in the game when you're trying to run the clock out? He's like, that's not our tendency. We don't do that.
Or tight end screens in the red zone to the right side.
Right. When you're up by 3 possessions, you do what you do well, and you just run the clock out versus getting cute, which I know is a fun word we'd like to say. But for whatever reason, after that interception, it just seemed like Dorsey was grabbing at straws. Like, we got to figure something out that's going to work here. And it's like, just do what you do, be you, and impose your will upon them. And they just didn't.
Now, Kevin's actually got to bounce on us right now. So it'll be Joe and I going forward. But Kevin, I appreciate you coming in on short notice for you. And hope the baby's doing well.
Thank you. Yeah, that's part of my mission here to take my shift over from the baby, who you'll know all well and true in due time for you. Cheers to you, man. But yeah, Joe, to wrap it, Dorsey went out and said he called his best plays in that situation. I don't know. I don't know about a short side tight end screen. I don't know about calling their best 3rd down play.
Right.
Definitely didn't call their best 4th down play with Isaiah McKenzie out of bounds.
Yeah. Watching Patrick Peterson run away with the football.
They pushed him out of. I get that he can't touch the ball, so I get kind of his mindset. I don't think he's anticipating a pick, but at the same time, it's like you dragged your route right out of bounds. You got casually tapped right out of bounds.
That's
so
right. And then
Ken Dorsey struggled 50% in the red zone right now, and he kind of went up there and doubled down and kind of said in his own way, Josh didn't go through the top down progression. But part of the reason I think Josh likes Dorsey to kind of take away from this is he said he doesn't want to be conservative. He's giving Josh the reins to do whatever he wants. I think Dable reined him in and argued with him more for better or for worse.
Right.
And in this case, Dorsey's giving him, Allen gave him the play to get this job, really.
Yeah.
And Dorsey's saying, go make your plays. I'm going to call some plays, go play hero ball. Look at the disconnect with him and Davis of like, which way is he going to break on these jail breaks. So, guys, I think all you have to do is you do have to monitor Dorsey. He does have to take a little more initiative, and he's got to get more creative and a little bit stronger in the red zone at some point. Singletary was working in the red zone. You got to run him there in a 6 box. It was this light box. It was clear as day to at least get the first down for a new set of downs there to end the game. So I do think Dorsey's worth monitoring right now, which is funny from a team that's 3rd highest scoring team in the league. So
Right. Good take.
But thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Have a good show, and congrats on Buffalo Rumblings.
Yep.
Thanks, man.
Have a good night, bro.
Have a great night.
You guys.
Now, Joe, obviously Scott just mentioned right here, why are we not using running backs in Gilliam? That's a big concern, whether it's scheming or just utilizing.
So this is what Bills fans do. So first of all, why are we not using? So this is 2 questions. Why are we not using our running backs? Well, first of all, we're not a run first team, right? So why are we not using our running backs when it makes sense or more effectively is a better question. So, when you look at this offense and what they try to do, this offense does not run well when everybody's tight packed to the line. They run better out of the spread, which you saw in that football game when there's, 6 down linemen, everybody's going to spread out. Give the ball to Devin Singletary. He's going to get some yardage. He's going to make a guy miss, block some guys down. It's going to be great. Why they're not doing that is why are they running draw plays in, when the other team is picking up some momentum and it's 3rd and 2? Who knows? You don't run a draw play at 3rd and 2. That's not the right play call in that situation. The other part about Reggie Gilliam, and I love Reggie Gilliam, but this is what Bills Mafia does. Like, we love the underdog. There's a guy on the bench that and people could say that I'm guilty of this because of Isaiah Hodgins, but Isaiah Hodgins went to New York City and actually played a pretty good game. He only had 2 receptions, but he was wide open on both of them. That's a little bit of a different situation than the dude that's on the bench, the Duke Williams guy, right? The Robert Foster is a number 1 wide receiver in the NFL. No, Robert Foster's not. No, Duke Williams is not. They don't look anything like Stephon Diggs. I don't know that there's an answer to, well, we're going to give the ball to Reggie Gilliam 5 times a game. I don't think that's how you win football games in the NFL. Do you surprise somebody once every 3 games? Like, holy, didn't see that coming like they did against the Titans? Yes, that you do. But these are 2 separate questions. I can't answer the first one. And I'll be honest with you, as much as I love Reggie, let's let Reggie do what Reggie does. Block. He blocks well. He plays that halfback role well. He blocks as a tight end. He does an admirable job compared to some of the other guys on this team that aren't linemen blocking, because we have trouble at times blocking on this football team, which is also a problem that we have with the running game. But I'm not going to sit here and stand that Reggie gets the football, touches the football. I want to see Nyheim Hines touch the football. Give that dude the football 10 times. Reggie, let Reggie block.
It was
one sledge. Let one sledge block. That's what he does.
Right. I was surprised that Hines, after 2 weeks on the team, only got 1 target.
Right.
For a guy, I mean, you could really almost kind of off script just get him in the flat or let him get open.
Right.
The one thing I want to know, and everybody that's in the chat, feel free to answer this yourselves. At this point, and I think we've talked about this countless times, are we reaching the point where Odell Beckham Jr. is someone that we go full press on now?
Yes. Yeah, in my opinion, I was not for Odell Beckham the first 3 to 4 weeks of the season. But at this point in time, for me, I'm absolutely in on him because the Buffalo Bills are gravely missing. You heard Kevin say it as well. So people have lost their minds on me on this topic because I brought it up for the last week. They miss Cole Beasley. They don't miss Cole Beasley, the person. They miss Cole Beasley, the player. This offense changes, much like with Josh's legs in the red zone. This offense changes the way it's defended when you've got a guy that can sit down in the soft zone 3 to 4 yards beyond the line of scrimmage. The linebackers and the safeties have to pay attention to that guy. Right now, what safeties are doing is they're just hanging back, and it's affecting Stephon Diggs. It's affecting Gabe Davis. Stephon Diggs is an number 1, probably top 3 wide receiver in the NFL, but even him bracketed, there's only so much room for him to get open, and there's going to be tight window contested throws, which they are succeeding on. Gabe Davis being put on the number 1 corner from every team, it's not working out so well. Like, he's having difficulty getting open. They are very much missing somebody to kind of live in that. I'm just a smart, heady player. I can find a soft spot in the zone. Josh is just going to hit him over the middle. If Odell Beckham can come in and give me that and keep Odell Beckham away from another AFC team that could use him, bring me Odell Beckham.
Right. I mean, I even said back when yourself and Greg Thompson and me did that early 53-man projection, I had said that Odell Beckham would be on this team. That was my one kind of surprise pick.
I was against it.
Right. But I think if you're looking at it, and Brandon Beane has said himself, you never go against adding talent. And he is talent. And he's not just talent. He is one of, when healthy, the better wide receivers in the NFL. And that's something that you can't just scoff at the idea of, because at this point, and we've seen, our offense has been shut down. I mean, 3 points in each of the last 3 games in the second half.
Yep.
It's just not going to do it. When you play a game like the Chiefs, when you play a team like the Dolphins, if you play the Eagles in the Super Bowl, right? Whoever, you're going to need to score points.
Yep.
And it's proven that a lot of these teams can also run the ball really effectively. And at this point, the Bills have proven that they haven't been that great at stopping it. So you need to be able to keep up with them one way or the other. And I think that comes down to getting as much talent in that locker room. So
agreed.
I agree. I think that's somebody that you get right in there. Now, one continued bright spot for the last few weeks has been Damar Hamlin. He has, I believe, cemented his future as the potential replacement for Jordan Poyer. Do you think he is a guy that could basically make Jordan Poyer expendable?
Expendable is a big word.
It is.
expendable means like we don't even need that guy. I don't know that you're going to find somebody necessarily better than Jordan Poyer. Could he grow into that player? Probably, but is he putting us in a situation where if this defense is healthy, maybe you're not missing Jordan as much? If Micah Hyde was playing right now, you're probably not missing Jordan Poyer, right? But with Micah Hyde out, there's a little bit of an issue right there, but he's playing well. He's playing fast. He's playing instinctive. He's running to the football. He's making plays all over the field. He's not getting caught up too much, and he's not making too many mistakes. But is he going to make me forget about Jordan Poyer? No.
Right, and obviously Jordan Poyer is one of those safeties that has kind of locked himself in that upper echelon of guys that everybody knows his name, or at least you would think. And not to say that DeMar Hamlin can unseat the guy, but he has made it more of a conversation at this point.
It wouldn't be unseating. It wouldn't be DeMar Hamlin beat him out. It would not be that. It would be the Bills don't want to pay that money to a safety. They want to get DeMar Hamlin on the cheap and put that money in Odell Beckham.
Right, and that's what I mean by unseating. Is not necessarily obviously beating him out in training camp next year, but not bringing bringing Jordan Poyer back.
Right.
And then finally, who, and everybody in the chat, if you guys want to hop in and talk, who is the Bills player that you feel at this point in the season needs to be playing more, needs to be seen more on the field?
That's a difficult question. I don't think there's anybody necessarily on the defense. I think the defense, I'm happy right now with the rotation. Vaughn is showing up when Vaughn needs to. Could I go with more Von Miller? Yes, right. He's used to it, but I think Von Miller is enjoying playing the percentage of snaps that he's getting. Offensively, who do I need to see more? I mean, at this point in time, it's probably just Nyheim Hines. I mean, I don't know who else there is. I don't need to see more Devin Singletary. I don't need necessarily. I mean, James Cook, the game doesn't look too big for him anymore. It looked the first 4 games of the season looked too big for him. Like, oh, this kid he's swimming out there. Like his mind, like the feet are under the water, just going crazy because he's just trying to stay afloat. It seems to be slowing down for him a little bit, but he's still not that he was ever going to be his brother. Like his brother, when you watch his brother play, same body type, similar body type, you just see a different type of determination, a different type of decision, a different type of cut. Cook has all those things, but James has all those things. Dalvin knows how to use them, if that makes any sense. So I don't know that I need to see more James Cook. I'd like to see more Nyheim Hines. He's a smart player. He's gifted. I was screaming for Nyheim Hines 2 years ago. Bring me Nyheim Hines. Like I wanted him last year. And obviously Brandon Beane said he did too. So he brings an element to this offense that isn't there, which is, obviously some veteran presence and some speed with some talent and some skill. So for me, I don't know what your answer is going to be. I can't think of anybody outside of Nyheim Hines, but he just got to the roster. So he's probably swimming a little bit too, just with this playbook. But
the one thing I'd like to see, and JR, Dave, and Richard Rush all said the same thing. I think Shakir needs a little more run. I think what he's shown. You don't think so?
So this is the problem. I came out early in the year and I said the hubris behind this roster creation that we had this year is somehow believing that Jake Kumaro is the only boundary receiver in reserve that we need. So the only other one was Isaiah Hodgins, who was on the practice squad. And dude, people took me to task on it. Khalil Shakir could be a boundary receiver. How's that working out for him? It's not. Like he's invisible in this offense, whether he can't get open or, I mean, he's made the catches that were thrown his way, the targets that he's had. But if he was legitimately if the dude was open, Dawson Knox is a perfect example. Dawson, as much as I said that he's been on the side of a milk carton, it's not because he hasn't necessarily been open. So there was an obvious point to get him the football this past weekend because he's been open. There would be a point to get Khalil Shakir on the field and get him the football if he's open. And I'm not sold on. I like Khalil Shakir as a player. I like him as a man. I think he's got great opportunity. I think he's potentially been drafted to be the replacement for Gabriel Davis because they're not going to pay Gabriel Davis $20 million a season when you've got Stephon Diggs on this football team and possibly OBJ for 2 years. So I think there's opportunity there for him to grow into a role. We've seen him run a lot of the same routes that Gabriel Davis has run or is running, but I haven't seen enough from him yet to be like, well, that guy's got to be on the football field. I just haven't seen it.
Right. The only other one I think, and just because I haven't seen a ton of them, but what I did see of him in training camp and preseason is Balin Spector. I think Balin, honestly,
Earlier. Yep.
right. I think he flashed really nicely. He's got great instincts, good size. And when you're lacking a linebacker right now with all the injuries, I think he'd be a great one to see out there and potentially see if he can make an impact. He's more of a downhill thumper.
Yeah. He's very instinctive, finds the ball, shoots gap well. I don't know. I don't know what's going on necessarily with that. By the way, the Washington Redskins are now imploding. They just threw an interception after giving up a touchdown. So we'll see how this game ends. But we'll have a couple minutes after this to watch the end of it. But no,
it's fantastic because I've got Taylor Heineke on my fantasy team, and now I'm losing. So there we go.
It'll be interesting to see what happens this week because if Tremaine Edmonds is out, going against Chubb, you've got to expect them. Last year, right? Take you back. We play the Colts. The Bills are in a nickel 4-2 the whole freaking game, and afterwards, Leslie Frazier is asked. They just put 260 yards on you. Did you ever consider going to a 4-3? Nope. What do you mean, nope? Right? And then there was people, and it was in the comment section of my last show. Maybe it was this one. I don't remember. It's getting blurry. And people all over Twitter saying defense is better with Taron Johnson. It's like, no, they're not. You need that extra 30 pounds, 40 pounds in a linebacker makes a big difference. And then the Bills started moving to a 4-3 against some of those bigger teams, and they started shutting the run down, which basically proved the point. If they go into this game in a nickel 4-2, Chubb is going to eat. Like he's going to run, he's going to truck this defense. So you got to expect that they're going to play some 4-3, not all 4-3, but some 4-3. I don't think they're that worried about Jacoby Brissett. So who's going to be on the field if Tremaine Edmonds can't play? I'd like to see Balin Spector. I don't know that I'm not sold on Bernard at this point. We heard a lot about him. We heard a lot of good things about him. Joe Marino
seemed a little slow, to be honest with you.
Well, it was because what they were asking him to do. Joe Marino talked about on his show last week that he's good at shooting gaps. Like if he's open, if it's an obvious gap shot, then he's good at that. But when it comes to being like a base linebacker where he's got to like read and react, he's not. His mental processing skills aren't quite what Matt Milano's are. Like Matt Milano processes fast and then gets to the ball fast. Like it's different. Balin Spector seems to be like a very similar. No, he's not Matt Milano, but he seems to process from what we saw in the preseason in a similar fashion. So I'd like to see Terrell Dotson, Balin Spector, and then obviously Bernard in there together potentially. I don't know what Milano, sorry. I don't know what we're going to get, but we're going to find out. But I would agree with you, Balin Spector. If Milano or Edmonds are injured, I'd like to see a little more of him. To be honest with you, Tyler Metakevich isn't a bad linebacker in this defense. As much as he's gotten housed many times by Bills fans and content creators about not being a good linebacker, in the 3-4, he's not a good linebacker. In the 4-3, he's played well for the Bills, including this weekend. He had a couple plays. I couldn't believe he was on the field, but he played well this past weekend. So
yeah, he did step in a couple times and really make an impact. And every time he has, he does his job, which is impressive. He's just like Jake Kumaro.
Yeah, and it goes back.
Yeah,
go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh no, it's okay. I was just gonna say, just like Jake Kumaro, when they, when their numbers called, they fill the necessity that is really in that moment, and they're very, very good at it. But I wouldn't want Metakevich on there for a long stretch. It's more of just a kind of just a filling the gap type of scenario.
Yeah, it comes back. What I was going to say is it comes back to what you're being asked to do as a 4-3 linebacker versus a 3-4 linebacker. And we all got lost. I did not. And it's on Twitter. Anthony Marino actually pulled it up last year. When Rex came in, we've got the wide 9-4-3 and like we're destroying teams with the Jim Schwartz defense. And it was like, oh my God, Rex Ryan's coming in. This is going to be great. I was like, he's going to destroy the defense. And it was like, oh, the 3-4 and the 4-3 are the same thing. No. The linebackers do completely different things, and rare is a player like Von Miller that can function in both. Very, very, very rare does that happen. So Metakevich is a benefactor of being in a 4-3 versus a 3-4 that he was in Pittsburgh when he did not play well as a linebacker.
Well, not to mention that a lot of Rex and his brother's defense is predicated on Buddy's defense, which is an antiquated style of defense. So it just wasn't working as well in Buffalo. I mean, they had Mario Williams dropping coverage. So
yeah.
Needless to say, I think that what you're seeing out of this Bills defense is correctable. I loved what I saw out of Cam Lewis. And I had mentioned earlier, I was talking with somebody. I don't think Cam Lewis played a bad game. I think he might have been a twitch slow where he needed to be. But outside of that, I mean, he looks significantly better than Jaquan Johnson. And I not that I think anything is terribly wrong with Jaquan Johnson.
No, for sure.
I think Jaquan Johnson is more of a, like an old, like early 2000s, late 1990s thumper safety.
Yeah, that's fair. He's just a little slow to react.
Right.
The highlight and all the conversation should be about Cam Lewis today. Literally, if that 4th and 18 pass to Justin Jefferson, if he swats it, the conversation is literally Cam Lewis out jumped Justin Jefferson and swatted the ball away on 4th down to secure the win for the Bills. Like and Cam Lewis isn't big. He's 5'10", and he out jumped Justin Jefferson. But unfortunately, it didn't play that way, and he knows it. He'll learn. He'll learn. The Bills had to learn from it 2 years ago. They're going to learn from it this time too. So
right, yeah, and local UB product. So I mean, you got to be proud of that all the same. But yeah, it's one of those unfortunate situations that he played the whole game, made really, really nice decisions, and it was just that one thing. And if you even watch the replay, Justin Jefferson doesn't make that catch without Cam Lewis's help. Cam Lewis literally helped him keep that ball where it needed to be.
Yeah, that's fair.
That being said, Joe, anything else you got to add in regards to this game or what you think about that Cleveland Browns game coming up?
Nothing. Nope. I think we've done a pretty good job. Just would like the blame game to stop in this game, and hopefully we stop the run next week and come out with a dub. So the weather's going to be crappy, 28 degrees, windy. It's not going to be great. So they're going to run the ball down our throat. They're going to try to run the ball down our throat. So hopefully the Bills will be ready, not playing the nickel 4-2.
Hey, you enjoy, because I'll be here at home. All the same. I truly appreciate everybody who has stopped in tonight for the first episode of Buffalo Late Night on Buffalo Rumblings. That's going to be a tongue twister going forward.
Right.
And obviously I appreciate you, Joe Miller and Kevin Massare, as well as my guy BangedUpBills, Dr. Kyle Trimble, for hopping in as usual. Guys, if you want to come check out more Buffalo Rumblings or Buffalo Late Night material, I told you it's going to mess me up bad. Buffalo Late Night material. You can go to Buffalo Late Night, BFLOLateNight.com.
These are what you need.
I've got one right on the screen, and I still am failing miserably. If you go to BFLOLateNight.com, you can check out all of our content there. It has links for Dentist for Kids, My Cousin's Practice, as well as Buffalo Rumblings and all of our previous shows. If you go on YouTube, you can see everything we've done before, including the 19th time that Joe Miller has been with me. So I truly appreciate it. I appreciate everybody who has stopped in. Keep looking forward to more stuff. Obviously, Jenna Cottrell will be back another time. Same with Tim Graham, and we'll have some more exciting content material. Make sure you check out all the other great shows coming up, whether it's Colt Schroeder, The Off Tackle, everything from Jay Spence, and the brand new show with Jerry Ostrowski, Sarah, and Colt. Really good stuff here at Buffalo Rumblings. I'm glad to be a part of it. And again, for my brother Ian and myself, we truly appreciate you stopping in. I am Thomas Salas. You have been watching Buffalo Late Night. Finish it like we started. Go Bills.
Go Bills.
The Bills make me wanna. The Bills make me